Hello everyone. Today we will take a look at Strands. This is a new framework from AWS or Amazon, and it is what they call a model driven approach as opposed to being a prompt driven or a workflow driven approach. Now, the team that built Strands was initially responsible for Amazon Q Developer, and what they found is that initially, at least around 2023, when this was being developed, the LLMs were not really capable of handling compound instructions. And what I mean by compound instruction is you give it an instruction and you expect it to use multiple sources of information or possibly multiple tools in order to achieve an overarching goal. So at that time, this is something that the model was struggling with. So what had to be done was that you needed to produce a lot of prompt templates, spend a lot of time tweaking it and ensuring that it actually works well before you were satisfied or even confident that this is something that can be deployed in production. That is something that even I have faced multiple times. So in fact, as I've mentioned in this blog, is that it took them possibly months before they could have an agent with the earlier frameworks that they were confident enough to deploy in production. So what changed? So when Strands came about, this was released in the middle of this year. We had something called reasoning models. Now the big difference between reasoning models is they're far more capable of one, using the tools correctly, second, reasoning about the respective tasks, and the biggest thing is they were able to correct themselves based on the results or based on the prior interactions that they've already had. And that is why this, according to Amazon Q developer team, they are able to ship a new agent in days and weeks with Strands instead of the earlier months that it took them. And the big difference is the model driven approach, where the focus is around the reasoning model, not just about the templates or the workflow that was being built. Earlier, where you would need a user prompt and you needed to wrap that around a template, with the new model driven approach or even with the new reasoning models, you just need the simple user prompt. And that was fed in directly to the LLM. Now let's take a look at see what an agent is in AWS Strands. Obviously, you have your reasoning LLM, and along with that, we have tool selection, followed by the ability to execute a tool. And then because it is an agent, it also has the ability to recursively decide whether it needs to continue its reasoning, whether it needs to select another tool, and once the tool has been selected, whether the tool needs to be executed. So this recursive chain is the core unit of an agent in AWS Strands. So whenever a user prompt comes in, along with the history, that is then sent to the agent, which has these three main abilities. Now, when a prompt comes in, the LLM decides, does it need to make a tool call? If it does not, it responds with a text output. And this is your final output or final response that you usually get. If it needs to make a tool call, then it's going to select the tool. Once the tool has been selected, the next logical step is executing the tool. And in executing the tool, this is inbuilt, so it doesn't need to be orchestrated. So you as a developer, you need not explicitly call the tool. That is taken care of by the agent itself. Now once the tool execution finishes, you get the tool results, and that is then fed back into the reasoning LLM, and the process continues again. The LLM then decides, is it sufficient, or does the LLM need to make a further tool call in order to achieve whatever is the goal that the user has asked. Now if everything works well, then the LLM gives you the final response, and that final response is your text output, or it could be it could be a structured output. It depends on you as a developer what you would like to extract from this, or what you would like the LLM to achieve. Okay, now let's take a look and see how this can be done in code. So it's quite simple. I've imported my operating system, I have my agent, I have given it two tools. One is the HTTP request, where it has the ability to make HTTP calls, and the Python REPL. So this is think you can think of this as a simple Python interpreter that it can use internally. I'm using the OpenAI set of models because that's something that I'm quite familiar with. So we set up the model. It is again really straightforward. You specify the API key and the model ID, and your model is ready to go. You s- and now we come to how we specify the agent. So we have the agent, we have the respective model, and then we have the tools that we pass in. Now, since this is a reasoning model, and this is also, although GPT 4.1 is not reasoning model, it is a very capable model, hence I'm utilizing this. Since AWS Strands is a model-driven framework, it takes care of handling the tool call and the tool selection. That is taken care of internally inside the agent. So all we need to do is specify the prompt and we can run it and it returns an agent result, which we will be printing. Now, let's run the agent. And this is, it also takes care of certain amount of human handoff. So we can run it, yes. As you can see, it is a good, it is a very decent answer. And of course, the question that I asked required it to make multiple calculations, and we can see the result here too. And this is the brief introduction to AWS Strands. And in the coming days, we will be talking more about this. Thank you.